You do not shoot down a weapon that moves faster than a fighter plane, flies lower than bombers, and never tires. For centuries, anti-aircraft warfare followed one brutal truth. You aim where the aircraft will be, you pray your math is right, and you fill the sky with steel. That was the rule. Guns did not hit aircraft. They scared them. They disrupted them. They forced pilots higher, faster, less accurate. But a direct kill, rare, almost accidental. German planners understood this better than anyone. By 1943, their engineers had built something that seemed to break air defense entirely. The Vergeltungswaffe 1, the V-1 flying bomb. A pilotless aircraft with a pulse jet engine, screaming across the sky at nearly 400 miles per hour, skimming at 2,000 to 3,000 feet. No fear, no evasive fatigue, no hesitation. Just a mechanical heart, counting miles until London. The British had guns, hundreds of them. Heavy 3.7-inch anti-aircraft batteries ringed the capital. Searchlights scanned the night. Radar sets plotted tracks. But the old rules still applied. You calculated, you fired shells that burst at preset altitudes, and you hoped the enemy flew into the explosion. Against bombers, sometimes that worked. Against a small, fast, unmanned missile, the math collapsed. German scientists believed they had found a loophole in physics and probability. Even if defenders tracked the V-1, they still had to guess when to detonate their shells. A guess off by fractions of a second meant a miss by hundreds of feet. London would drown under steel and explosives, and there would be nothing anyone could do but watch. That was the rule. But in 1944, one man and a handful of physicists changed everything. You meet Merle Anthony Tuve not in a uniform but in a laboratory. He's in his early 40s in 1944. Tall, methodical, a geophysicist by training, used to studying the upper atmosphere with radio waves. He thinks in frequencies, wavelengths, invisible forces. Before the war, his work helps scientists understand the ionosphere. Now, war drags him into a different kind of sky. When the United States mobilizes science, Tuve ends up at Johns Hopkins, helping lead the Applied Physics Laboratory. His mission sounds simple and impossible at the same time. Build a shell that knows when it is close enough to an airplane to explode. Not a timer, not a guess, a decision. Artillery shells endured 20,000 times the force of gravity when fired. They spin at hundreds of revolutions per second. Electronics of the 1940s are fragile glass tubes. Most engineers say the idea is fantasy. Tuve does not. He and his team design a tiny radio transmitter inside the shell. It emits a signal. When the signal reflects off a nearby object, an aircraft wing, a fuselage, the change in the echo triggers detonation. The shell does not need to hit the plane, it just needs to pass within lethal range. It becomes known as the VT fuse, variable time. Later, the world will call it the proximity fuse. While Tuve wrestles with physics, another revolution unfolds. At MIT's radiation laboratory, engineers build the SCR-584 radar, a microwave radar that doesn't just detect aircraft, it locks on and tracks automatically. It measures range, azimuth, elevation, feeding precise data to analog fire control computers. Individually, each is remarkable. Together, there's something else entirely. By mid-1944, the war reaches a new phase. Allied armies land in Normandy on June 6th. German forces, desperate to strike back, unleash the V-1 campaign on June 13th. The first bombs hit London days later. A buzzing sound, then silence, then explosion. One V1 carries roughly 1,870 pounds of high explosive. It can level city blocks. It does not negotiate. It does not surrender. Thousands are coming. If Britain cannot stop them, morale breaks, production falters, political pressure mounts. The Germans believe they have found a weapon of terror that air defenses cannot counter. TÜV's fuze has already proven itself at sea against aircraft, but now comes the true test. Can invisible radio waves inside a spinning shell, guided by an equally invisible radar beam, stop a robot bomb moving faster than most fighters? The challenge stands in the sky over England. The summer air vibrates with a sound Londoners learn to hate. Bzzz. The pulse jet engine of a V1 coughs 50 times per second, a harsh mechanical snarl. People freeze when they hear it. They count the rhythm, because when the sound stops, you have seconds before impact. On the coast, radar stations detect the incoming waves. Operators watch green blips crawl across scopes. But now something is different. At newly positioned gun sites, the SCR-584 turns. Its dish rotates, finds a target, and then locks. Motors whir. The radar tracks automatically, updating position many times per second. Data flows into the M9 director, an analog computer. It calculates lead angles, shell flight time, wind, target speed. Numbers become orders. Gun barrels elevate, traverse gears grind. Crews stand by 90mm anti-aircraft guns, massive weapons firing shells weighing around 24 pounds. Fire. The gun recoils with a crack that punches your chest. Smoke stings your nose. Brass casings clatter. Shells climb, arcing toward a speck that is not a plane, not a pilot, just a machine. In the past, gunners would set fuses to explode at a predicted altitude. Now they load shells with TÜV's creation. Inside each shell, a tiny radio circuit awakes as the projectile spins through the sky. It sends out a signal. It listens. The V1 roars on, unaware. Range, 5,000 yards. The radar tracks, the computer adjusts. Guns fire in rapid sequence, 15 to 20 rounds per barrel. A battery might send dozens of shells into the predicted path. Range, 3,000 yards. British and American crews have rehearsed this. They trust the machines, even if they do not fully understand them. The shell closes. Inside, radio waves reflect off metal skin. The echo strengthens. At roughly 70 feet from the target, close enough that shrapnel will shred the thin wings and fuel system, the circuit trips. Detonation. A sharp flash, a dark puff in the sky. Fragments slice through the V1 structure. The pulse jet sputters. The missile rolls, dives, and explodes harmlessly in fields or the channel. At first, results are modest. Crews learn. Radar calibration improves. Guns reposition closer to the coast to get longer engagement windows. Procedures tighten. Then the curve changes. By late summer 1944, entire belts of guns, guided by SCR-584 radar and firing proximity-fused shells, create lethal corridors. V1s entering these zones face a wall of invisible triggers. You stand by a gun as another contact comes in. Track established. You feel the vibration through your boots as barrels fire in sequence. The sky fills with black puffs, not random anymore, but clustered tightly around the missile's path. A V1 survives the first burst. It wobbles, damaged but flying. Range, 2,200 yards. Second salvo. Range, 1,800 yards. A shell bursts just off its wing. The wing snaps. The missile cartwheels into the sea. Around you, crews shout, but they do not celebrate long. Another track appears. At the peak of the campaign, Germany launches over 100 V1s in a single day toward London. Early on, most get through. Then interception rates climb. 30%, 50%, higher. Enemy operators notice. Reports reach German command. Many flying bombs are being destroyed not by fighters, not by barrage balloons, but by ground fire, with shocking efficiency. They don't understand how. From their perspective, the old rule still applies. Anti-aircraft guns cannot be that accurate. They suspect new fuses, new radar, maybe both, but the speed of the shift baffles them. You watch another engagement at dusk. The sky glows orange. A V-1 streaks in low. The radar locks. Guns fire. Nothing. First burst misses. The missile continues, engine buzzing. You feel it, that old rule creeping back. Maybe it was luck. Maybe the Germans were right. Range, 1,500 yards. Second burst. A shell bursts almost level with the missile. Fragments punch through the fuel line. Flame trails behind the V-1. It loses lift, plunges into open countryside. Failure seemed certain for a moment. Then physics intervened. Across weeks of combat, statistics accumulate. In sectors equipped with SCR-584 radar, M9 directors, and VT fuses, kill rates soar. In some belts, guns destroy over 80% of incoming V-1s. One figure echoes through after-action reports. Roughly 82% of V-1s engaged in these zones are shot down. Gunners who once fired thousands of rounds per kill now see missiles fall after dozens. Radar tracks, computers calculate, shells decide. The Germans built a weapon to exploit the weakness of human timing. Tuve and his counterparts removed the human delay. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of genius deserve to be told, and by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. The fighting continues. At night, flashes dot the sky like silent lightning. The smell of cordine hangs over gun sights. Crews operate in shifts, exhausted, ears ringing, yet morale rises. For the first time, they aren't just enduring the V-1s, they're hunting them. German engineers try to adjust launch patterns, altitudes, routes. It barely matters. The defensive system adapts. Radar sees, guns turn, shells listen. The rule has broken. What they did not know in Berlin was how complete the transformation had been. The combination of microwave radar, analog computing, and proximity fuses did more than blunt the V-1 campaign. It rewrote anti-aircraft warfare. Before this, air defense relied on prediction and volume. After, it relied on tracking and proximity. Accuracy jumped not by percentages, but by multiples. Allied commanders realized the implications immediately. If guns can reliably hit fast, small targets, then airspace over fleets, cities, and armies becomes far more lethal to attackers. The psychological effect cuts both ways. British civilians still suffer, but confidence grows as more V-1s vanish in the sky. German planners, who expected terror and paralysis, see diminishing returns. Resources poured into flying bombs yield shrinking impact. The true impact wouldn't be fully understood until later wars, when radar-directed, proximity-fused defenses become standard worldwide. The lineage runs straight back to those gun belts in 1944. A physicist's radio wave trapped in a spinning shell has altered the balance between offense and defense in the air. Merle Tuve does not stand at a gun. He does not watch V-1s fall from the sky. His battlefield is a lab bench, electroscopes flowing in dim rooms, engineers arguing over circuits that must survive impossible forces. Yet the lives saved in London, in ports, over fleets, trace back to those decisions. After the war, Tuve returns to scientific work, but the proximity fuse remains one of the quiet revolutions of the conflict, a device so secret at the time that many who depended on it never knew how it worked. Think about the people under those flight paths, families listening for the buzz, gunners gripping lanyards, radar operators staring at scopes, many of them in their 20s,
some younger. To this day, modern air defense systems still follow the same logic: detect, track, compute, detonate by proximity. The technology has evolved, but the principle is the same invisible handshake between sensor and weapon. This story matters now because it shows how wars turn not only on courage, but on minds willing to challenge impossible. A rule that stood for generations fell in months when science, industry, and soldiers aligned. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served.